Well, let's talk now to the Trade Secretary, Liam Fox, who joins us from central London. Good morning to you, Mr. Fox.
Good morning.
It is the eve of the vote tomorrow. Do you think the government will win it?
Well, the numbers at the moment don't look particularly favourable, but the Prime Minister will request to make a statement to the House of Commons this afternoon, setting out the discussions she's had in recent days with European leaders and the reassurances that she's been able to get on some of the issues that MPs are concerned about, notably around the backstop, which is, of course, the insurance policy that we have in case we're unable to come to an agreement with the European Union over the period of the implementation period in the next 2 years.
So the numbers, you admit, are not looking good at the moment. So as it stands, before the Prime Minister utters a word today, it looks like you'll lose.
Well, we have to wait and see. It depends on how our MPs interpret what the Prime Minister is going to say. We've got a clear instruction from the voters, which is that we have to leave the European Union. Parliament gave that decision to the people. The people took that decision. Parliament must now have the humility to carry that decision out. In fact, I would say it's a matter of duty and a matter of honour that we do so. The question is, how do we do that? Now, in front of us, we have the deal that the Prime Minister has negotiated with European leaders. It's not the deal that everybody would want, but then probably no negotiation is, but it's a way in which we can carry out the wishes of the British people with minimal disruption in terms of our economy. The two other alternatives are to leave with no deal at all, or indeed not to leave the European Union. Now, I think leaving with no deal, while I think it's entirely survivable for the UK economy, would be problematic in the short term. But I think no Brexit would create such a chasm between Parliament and the voters that its consequences would be unknowable.
Yeah, the Prime Minister is pulling out all the stops today at the last minute on the eve of the vote. She wants to try and persuade MPs. She's got this speech up in Stoke today, and she's also making that statement in the Commons on the Irish border. But as you mentioned there, the possibility of no Brexit at all has started to be talked about, and the Prime Minister is going to reference that in her speech in Stoke-on-Trent today. Do you think that's the likely outcome if MPs reject her plans tomorrow?
I think it's a possible outcome. It's very clear that there are a number of MPs who think that they can defy the will of the people. They think that their opinions seem to be more important than the people who voted in the referendum. I take huge issue with that. I think, as I said, that we have a duty to carry out the result of the referendum, but we have a parliament where the majority of MPs themselves voted to remain. The question is whether they will put their own opinions ahead of the opinions of the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the EU.
You've said before that something can be 50-50 if this deal doesn't go through. No Brexit, what are the odds on that, in your opinion, then, if this deal doesn't get through? How likely is it looking?
It's impossible to say because it's tied up with a lot of parliamentary procedure, but it certainly is possible because there are quite a number of MPs who would like that to be the outcome. I think that, when we had the general election in 2017, both major parties said that they would respect the result of the referendum. I think if MPs individually now turned around and said, actually, we're not even going to honour our own manifestos, never mind the result of the referendum itself, I think you will see a huge gulf between members of Parliament and the public, and it's hard to see how you would repair that damage in terms of Parliament's reputation.
Are Rebel MPs plotting against you? There was all that coverage in the Sunday papers yesterday about MPs wrestling to take control from the government in Parliament to have a say on Brexit. Boris Johnson, in his column in The Telegraph today, has said that this plot is nonsense. What are your views on MPs' actions to try and control the outcome of what's going on?
Oh, it's not nonsense. There is definitely a group of MPs who would want that to happen. And I think that we need to be realistic about the potential options should the Prime Minister be unable to persuade Parliament on her deal. So to simply dismiss it as unrealistic, I know from conversations that I've had that there are a number of MPs who don't want Brexit to happen at all. Some of whom won't even be standing at the next election, so don't really care about the electoral consequences. To dismiss it, I think, is not responsible.
OK, I just want to put some viewers' questions to you, if I may. I put out a tweet last night. We got lots of questions in for you. This has come in from Macaulay Mosley. He said, can you please ask Liam Fox if he honestly believes that Theresa May's deal will survive the meaningful vote, or is this a ploy the government are using to run down the clock on Brexit? Because you must admit, all Theresa May's actions are coming in the 24 hours before this meaningful vote.
Well, I don't believe that to be true. The government has been making a lot of attempts to persuade members of Parliament. We had a number of days of debate on all the issues across all the governmental departments. I'm leading for the government today on global Britain and trade. So there's been substantial debate on this. But we do want to come to a conclusion, and I do hope that tomorrow MPs will bring this process to an end by voting for the Prime Minister's deal. If we don't, there'll be further uncertainty.
Yeah, nothing about this Brexit process is as easy as it may have looked at the outset. This has come in from Tetbury Boy on Twitter. He says, does Liam Fox plan to apologise to voters after his assurance that getting a deal with the EU would be one of the easiest things in human history?
What I said was the trade agreement that we come to for our future trading relationship with the European Union should technically be easy, because we begin with exactly the same regulations and exactly the same legislation, which we don't in any other trade
Hasn't been though, has it? So you must regret saying that.
But we're not discussing the trade agreement at the moment. We're discussing the withdrawal agreement. We cannot get to the negotiations on the future trading relationship until we have the withdrawal agreement in place. That is the key point. And this has been about the politics of it, not the future trading relationship.
And this is from Sarah McAvoy. She says the public voted to leave the EU, but Theresa May's deal ties us to them forever. The complete opposite of what we, the people, voted for. Surely Parliament cannot vote for a deal that goes totally against what the public voted for. There has been one criticism, hasn't it, in terms of Theresa May's plan tying us to the EU more than perhaps voters would like.
Well, I don't believe it does that. And I've read these criticisms, but on detailed questioning, do we have an end to free movement and control of our own borders? Yes, we do. Do we have an end to the oversight of the European Court in terms of the British law? Yes, we do. Do we stop paying vast amounts of money into the European Union after the end of our implementation period? Yes, we do. In my view, it does give us the things that I argued for and fought for in the very long period when I was campaigning to leave the European Union.
OK, well, thank you to our viewers for tweeting in their questions, and thank you to you, Liam Fox, for answering them. Just one before we go. We've just been looking through the Prime Minister's speech that she'll be making in Stoke later on, and there's a paragraph that stands out to us. She's going to say, imagine if an anti-devolution House of Commons had said to the people of Scotland or Wales that despite voting in favour of a devolved legislature, Parliament knew better and would overrule them, or else force them to vote again. Theresa May voted against the bill to create the Welsh Assembly in '97 after the referendum that voted for it, as did you. So it seems like a bit of an odd example for the Prime Minister to bring up in stating her case.
Not at all. I think it's a very good example. We were on the losing side of that referendum, but we accepted that the public had spoken. And can you imagine what would have happened if we had not been willing to accept the verdict of the voters, but instead said Parliament knows best? And so Parliament should not say it knows best now. Parliament should do what it was elected to do, which was to deliver on the Brexit referendum. That's our duty. I think we are honour bound to do so.